I've been tracking box office numbers for the past month, and I need to show you something that should be impossible. In 2023, independent films pulled in $7.3 billion globally. That's 21.7% of the entire worldwide box office. Almost a quarter of all movie money went to films made outside the studio system. But here's what made me actually start digging deeper. In 2024, the top 10 independent films made $1.6 billion. That's a 30% increase from the previous year, while major studio blockbusters are actively struggling to break even. Something fundamental has shifted, and I think I figured out what it is. Before I break down how companies you've probably never heard of are reshaping the entire film industry, I need to test something about my audience. I'm making a community post with a poll, links in the description, asking which indie studio you've actually heard of before watching this video. A24, Blumhouse, Neon, or none. Go vote right now, because those results are going to tell us something fascinating about how indie cinema actually breaks through to mainstream audiences. Also, that's where I post quick reactions to box office surprises and early thoughts on upcoming releases. So if you're not checking community posts, you're missing half the conversation. Get Out cost $5 million to make and earned over $250 million worldwide. Everything Everywhere All at Once made $140 million on basically an indie budget and won Best Picture. Long Legs became 2024's highest grossing independent film and Neon's biggest earner ever, despite looking like it was made for horror fans only. These aren't anomalies. This is the new business model, and it's working better than the traditional studio system. If you watched my horror video, then you already know how Blumhouse prints money with low budgets and massive returns. But what's happening with indie studios goes way beyond just horror. This is across every genre, and it's accelerating. In 2025 alone, Blumhouse films already made over $81 million domestically, with only about $62 million in combined production budgets. That's nearly a 30% profit margin before international distribution even kicks in. Meanwhile, studios are spending $200 million on films that barely break even. A24 has become such a brand that people will watch a film just because it says A24 in the credits. That's brand loyalty at a level most studios can only dream of. Their online store alone generated $63.3 million in 2024, and is projected to grow another 10 to 20% in 2025. They're making money from merchandise, brand partnerships, and building a lifestyle around their films, not just ticket sales. So what changed? Why are audiences suddenly choosing indie films over studio blockbusters? Streaming disrupted the old studio model. Studios are making fewer theatrical releases and focusing on streaming content, which opened up massive space in theaters for everyone else. But that's not the whole story, because streaming should have killed indie films too. The real shift is audience fatigue. Remember my franchise video where I showed how 9 of 2024's top 10 films were sequels? That's what studios are making. Franchises, reboots, IP adaptations. Audiences are exhausted by repetitive content designed by committee, and indie studios are delivering exactly what people are craving. Something different, something real, something that feels like it was made by humans who actually care. Indie studios move faster. They don't have multiple layers of executives and committees weighing in. They're agile in ways major studios physically cannot be because of their corporate structure. They take creative risks. Here's something you rarely hear from a major studio. We're not sure if this will work, but it's so interesting that we have to make it. That's how indie films get greenlit. They're not focus grouped to death. They're not designed by algorithm. They're made by filmmakers who have a vision and indie studios that trust them. When audiences feel that authenticity, they respond. Let me introduce you to the companies that are actually doing this. A24 is the name everyone knows. Moonlight won Best Picture. Hereditary redefined modern horror. Everything Everywhere All at Once became a cultural phenomenon. These aren't just successful films. They define entire movements in cinema. A24 has diversified into merchandise, music, even fashion. They understand the future of entertainment isn't just theatrical releases, it's building a brand. Blumhouse figured out the formula: keep budgets low, find incredible stories and talents, rake in money. Insidious, The Red Door, made nearly $190 million globally. Their horror films generate returns that studios can only achieve with superhero franchises. Except Blumhouse does it on budgets 40 times smaller. Jason Blum essentially cracked the code on ultra-low budget filmmaking, where even a film that makes $50 million at the box office is massively profitable. Neon is 8 years old, founded in 2017, and they're already one of the most respected names in independent cinema. They distributed Parasite, which became a global phenomenon and won Best Picture in 2020. Their Long Legs marketing campaign was some of the creepiest, most brilliant marketing I've ever seen. They don't just release films, they create cultural events. Focus Features delivered Brokeback Mountain and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Black Bear Pictures brought us The Imitation Game. Element Pictures gave us Room and The Favorite. These companies aren't just making films, they're defining what cinema means to a generation that grew up on franchise fatigue. Alright, we've now reached the part of the video where I beg for your attention, like a major studio begging you to care about their 5th reboot. Subscribe and hit the bell, because apparently, if I don't say this every video, the algorithm personally comes to my house and deletes my channel. Also hit the bell icon, which I'm told is very important, but I'm not entirely sure why. YouTube says it matters. I believe YouTube. And hey, send this to your film nerd friend or anyone who's curious about how the movie business actually works. They need this. So maybe do it? No pressure. Okay, back to business. Festival prestige is translating into commercial success in ways we've never seen before. Parasite won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and then became a global box office phenomenon. The indie film world and mainstream box office are merging. Cannes, Berlin, Sundance aren't just critic circuits anymore. They're launching pads for films that will dominate pop culture. Studios are terrified because indie companies prove you don't need $200 million budgets to make culturally important, commercially successful films. That's existentially threatening to the studio model that depends on massive budgets justifying massive control. Industry analysts predict independent film production will increase heading into 2025 and beyond. As traditional studios reduce theatrical output because of streaming investment burnout, smaller independent producers are stepping up to fill the void. That means more content, more opportunities, and more competition for major studios. Quick side note, I'm dropping my instant reaction to the upcoming A24 releases on the community tab as soon as their slate gets announced. That won't be a full video, just my first thoughts on whether they're expanding too fast or if this is sustainable growth. Links in the description. And if you're not checking those posts, you're missing where I'm most active between videos. So what does this mean for you if you just love movies? The films you see in theaters are probably going to get better and weirder. More diverse stories, more experimental filmmaking, less reliance on franchise IP. A24 films and Blumhouse productions don't appeal to everyone, but they take risks that major studios won't. If you're a filmmaker, screenwriter, or anyone with a creative idea, the barriers to entry have never been lower. Indie powerhouses are actively looking for new voices. They're not gatekept by the studio system the way things used to be. From a pure movie lover standpoint, you're living in one of the most exciting eras of cinema in decades. We're past the point where indie films feel like an alternative to mainstream cinema. They are mainstream cinema now. Remember that poll about which indie studio you've heard of? Links in the description. Go vote and check the current results, because I bet they're already revealing something interesting about how these brands actually penetrate mainstream consciousness. That's community post only, not a full video, because some insights work better as quick takes. If you're only watching videos and ignoring posts, you're missing where the actual conversation happens. Quick question before we wrap. Comment which indie studio you think will be the biggest in 5 years. A24, Blumhouse, Neon, or someone else entirely. I'm genuinely curious what you think based on everything you just learned about their strategies. While indie studios are proving you can succeed with creativity and small economics, there's a darker side to the story that explains why they had to rise in the first place. I broke down how franchises killed original movies, and we just let it happen. The economic restructuring that made mid-budget films disappear from theaters entirely. Watching that after this will show you why indie studios aren't just succeeding, They're filling a void that Hollywood deliberately created.